has controlled the world for 200 plus years, and we get to be alive at a time to see it fall. I believe in the power of one person working as a team with other Christian patriots can have massive impact in reversing this ungodly culture. I believe that we have an omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent God that has put his hand on this moment in time to deny the timeline of the enemy and is about to heal our land. This is Rick, your host, and I believe that God has called me to empower Christian patriots with truth. Join us now for the Blessed to Teach show, and let's see what God is doing today.
Let me introduce Kirk Bible healing oils to you, which are infused with frankincense and myrrh. The truth is that for 4,000 years, frankincense and myrrh have been used as the principal medicine for pain, inflammation, fighting cancer, healing and disinfecting wounds, and more. Kirk quickly absorbs through the skin into the bloodstream, delivering nutrients and powerful anti-inflammatory compounds directly to each cell. Wherever the blood goes, the curate goes. So just applying a few drops in the general area of concern provides quick and effective relief. Used orally, Curate relieves COVID, cold, and flu symptoms fast, boosts immune function, and is proven to reduce EMF-induced inflammation of the blood. Visit BibleHealingOil.com to read our testimonials and learn more about Curate. Use the code on your screen for the best deals.
Welcome, it's Rick B2T here. We're going to be empowering Christian patriots for the next few hours. We have a ton going on here that we're going to report on, including, is Trump going to do the Insurrection Act on Minneapolis? We know it's going to be, I believe, nationwide pretty soon, but it looks like that might be going to Minneapolis first. And then we say, the banking scam. Yes, we're going to be talking about the banking scam as well in a big way with Larry Ballard coming on live to dig into that for a detailed dive into how they're in trouble and how we're going to replace them, etc. All good news coming, guys. And then we're going to be getting to the next second hour. We'll get into praise and prayer. Again, that's going to be on a different Rumble channel that is called the Growing Your Faith channel, or Word and Worship, Word with the N Worship. You can just also follow us on Faith and Freedom TV. We're live right now on Facebook and YouTube, and as well, as well as Rumble and Faith and Freedom TV. But where I can see the chats are Backstage Zoom, as well as Rumble, as well as YouTube. So put some chats in there. We'd love to see and make this interactive a little bit. I'd love if you have questions or comments, put them in the chat, and I'll be looking over those every once in a while to see what exactly is happening here. So welcome again to the Blessed Teach Show. Let's dig in to some breaking news. I want to start a little bit with the Hillary Clinton thing because this is interesting. So let's start there. I'm going to go to the breaking news slide here. Here we are. This is a empty chair that says Hillary R. Clinton, right? And here's Comer and them basically giving an announcement.
Duly authorized congressional subpoena.
That was a duly authorized congressional subpoena. I'll play that one more time.
Duly authorized congressional subpoena.
So, and that was bipartisan. You can see on this interview that Comer's talking all about it in detail, and it's really interesting. But the whole point being is that Hillary Clinton might be indicted for the first time on just contempt of Congress. It's going to be way worse than that for her, I guarantee you. When the military tribunals come, I believe that's the next thing. But what I wanted to also show is it was something that came out yesterday late, is this January 14th Q drop 536 fire, right? And what is it talking about? It's basically an 8-year delta, And the post says, you can see here, January 14th, 2018. So that's exactly when this was getting hot, and she's going for contempt of Congress. It says, POTUS just retweeted story. Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails may not be missing after all. Wouldn't that be interesting? Have you not discovered the confirmed correlation between post here and tweets yet? And so the whole point being here that Q was talking about was and that's that when Trump does things, it was relating exactly to things happening on the Q board. So that was real interesting. That was an 8-year delta yesterday, as I reported on, that being what I believe is going to be probably the first arrest is Hillary, based on the Russia thing, not just contempt, right? And that'll go way deeper when you get into Benghazi and the Uranium One and many other things that she did, especially with giving our secrets, our special access programs to. That's why Russia has better nuclear weapons than we do, that can hypersonic, that can actually reduce radars. Why they were able to, the Iranians were able to even penetrate the Iron Dome and hit Israeli citizens with their because that was given out by Hillary on purpose on her servers that were not authorized, giving away our secrets on purpose to the highest bidder, I'm sure, is what was going on. Here's another thing that a ripcord, that this is a guy that's looking at the Q drop, saying on Trump's True Social post this morning, he was missing an R in the word your, and it was real obvious too. If you saw the post, here it is, and at the very end of this, and he was talking about this. This comes back to the whole theme of the thumbnail here. It says, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, all in capital letters, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for the attention to this matter, President DJT. We'll get in a second. We're showing that there's another shooting. Somebody got shot in the leg that was attacking an ICE agent with a shovel. It's like, are you kidding me? It's just crazy. But several things connected here. So number one, you can see thank you for you attention versus your attention. And Q always talked about that misspellings, missing letters, extra letters were all part of the comms. So thank you for you attention, right? So it's a missing R. So the first thing that Anons always do, they check the timestamp 804. So they look at post 804 and it says Delta 6 conf comms good operational Q. So I believe there was operations going on at this point in time, but they also could point to future operations. That's future proves past when you talk about the Q drops, right? And here you go. I wanted to go back to one thing on that I think made a lot of sense. See if I can go back to it. Here it is. And so the missing R, he basically searched the Q drops, and there's one up here that's kind of long. I'm not going to get into because I didn't think it was quite as direct. But this one, because it was also talking about operations and things like that. But here's this one. It says it just zoomed in on part of this, I believe. It says, what is a spell? Who is asleep? Dissemination, attention on deck. There's an active war in your mind. Be prepared. Open operations underway. So there's two things, the missing R and the timestamp, both pointing to operations underway, right? So that usually means arrest of deep state players behind the scenes that we don't know about. Operations active, graphic is essential. Find the keystone. Moves and counter moves. They never thought she would lose. Talking about Hillary again there. Snow White, Godfather 3, Iron Eagle, Q. We've decoded all these things. We'll talk about those at a later time. But the whole point, this is operations are underway, it seems like what they're talking about. And that's what this Anon is talking about. On Trump's True Social post this morning, he was missing an R in the your. If you put the R in the Q boards, you get post 128, date 9/27, which contains operations underway. This ties directly to my original decode of Trump's AI post for operational in Q post 804. It seems as if Trump is telling us operations are active. Buckle up. Exactly what's happening. And remember, Iran is next after North Korea. So are we finally getting to the operation in Iran? Supposedly there's tunnels. There's all kinds of crazy, deep state, ugly stuff that's been going on through Iran. They'd be the transfer mechanism for the election fraud too. When big transactions were going through for between Venezuela and China and also Cuba as well as other entities, right? They would use the oil, acting like they were buying oil at this price, but it was really this price. So that difference would be the transfer payment, so it doesn't hit the SWIFT systems. So they can do criminal activity through Iran through the buying and selling of oil, and that was very significant in Venezuela. The generals that are whistleblowers are talking about just that they did that. Now here's SG Anon, who comes on the show, which is a great intel guy, and he's pointing to this White House post. It just posted this thing like a video game of Trump, right? And you see Trump, POTUS here, says, we're bringing back whole milk and making America healthy again. And it shows milk here, large milk. But what's interesting about this is the money they have up here, right? They're basically showing 45, 46, 47, 48. Woo! So people are going, oh my goodness, does that mean Trump was 45? He has continuity of government, right? Doing a lot of setting the stage stuff during the Biden 46. And then he became 47. And is he going to be given after that, all this election fraud showing, all the Russia stuff, how they impeded him so much on his first term that they're going to give him that third term because they basically sabotaged him on his first two terms, right? So 45, 46, 47, 48. so SG Anon's comment was, wow. Now the White House itself is telling Anons what has been and what is yet to come. 45, 46, 47, 48. Trust your president. Trust the plan from dark to light. They never thought she would lose. Now they all lose. Q plus. And as you know, Q plus, and anybody who's followed me at all knows that that's Trump. Q is like the Q team of under 10 military intelligence, mostly people. And Q plus being Trump. And this is interesting comms coming to us in different ways, showing that, guys, patriots are in control, trust the plan, hold the line, all the stuff that's been coming out in the last 4 or 5 days. If you missed my shows, that clearly show the Department of Labor actually giving all kinds of comms. There's 4 of them that they give: hold the line, America first, as well as patriots in control and trust the plan. All coming in this month, in the month of January. Pretty crazy stuff, and showing us that we can actually not be anxious about anything, just like the Lord tells us to do. But this is another reason, is that we have patriots in control in many parts of this, and we are going to win this battle. And now it's a spiritual battle, and we have to be involved, and we have to use our authority in Christ. But we are going to win this battle. It's exciting. All right, this other person took that same graphic, and they said, holy shh, and it said 46, 47, 48. At what stage in the game do you play the Trump card? And that was all on the White House deal. So he's putting this onto the Trump card, right? And you can see here the whole point being is that we would have Trump for another 4 years after this next 3 years. And then he was pointing to 2936. It says, at what stage in the game do you play the Trump card? Q. And I think that's probably been played in 2016 and 2024, probably even during the Biden years. Here's where I went, whoa, with my eyes. This might go down as one of Carolyn Levitt's greatest media takedowns of all time. And she did it right to his swarmy face. Her wrath was biblical. So see what else this says. The reporter thought he had Levitt dead to rights after she defended ICE, and he listed out their stats. So let's just play it live. So I think I'm going to play it for you, and I think you'll find this fascinating. I'm going to put this here so you guys can watch it full screen. Ready? Here we go.
Thanks, Caroline. Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 US citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist. Kelly.
Whoa! That's what I wrote on my when I was going through my Twitter on that. It's like, or my X. It's like, whoa. Biased left-wing hack. Yep, says T. Mitchell. That's right. Woo! So it's getting fun. You can enjoy this process, guys. That's what the Lord told me a lot of times. He says, Rick, enjoy the process. Relax a little, right? When I get mad at myself for something, or I didn't feel I did something wrong, or I'm just frustrated with what's going on. He's literally told me in my Rick's Alone Time with God blog, Rick, relax and enjoy the process. I think that's what they want us to do, right? And T. Mitchell saying he isn't even American. Well, he definitely had the huge English accent, that's for sure. Let's continue here. Federal officer shoots suspect in Minneapolis. In a Minneapolis arrest, and so this is interesting. The federal officer gets attacked with some guy with a shovel, I think it was, right? It's pretty crazy. The person, the Department of Health and her Security said that in a statement on social media platform X that the federal law enforcement officers stopped an illegal alien from Venezuela. The person drove away and crashed into a parked car before taking off on foot. After the officers reached the person, two other people arrived from a nearby apartment, and all three started attacking the officer. Fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by three individuals, the officer fired a defensive shot to defend his life. The two people who came out of the apartment are in custody. The shooting took place about 4.5 miles from where Renee Good was killed on January 7th. Smoke filled the streets near the site of the shooting as federal officers and protesters squared off. A group of officers wearing gas masks and helmets fired tear gas and grenades into the small crowd of protesters and threw snowballs and chanted. This is why Trump is doing the Insurrection Act, right? So Trump threatens the Insurrection Act after ambushed ICE agent shoots an illegal alien. Put an end to this travesty, as he says, right? So this is, it's getting pretty dangerous. This is talking about, despite their vilification by Democrat officials and an 8,000% increase in death threats, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents continue Minneapolis and other dangerous sanctuary jurisdictions and make arrests, 70% of which are reportedly of criminal illegal aliens charged or convicted of a crime in the United States. So these are literally criminals. And we see, wow, this is amazing what's going on here. So Trump talks about this, and we read this earlier. This is the one that's the missing R. But it's if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job. Again, this is a guy that illegal alien from Venezuela who was most likely a criminal. 70% of them are. They're trying to pull him over. He rushes in the car, goes on foot, gets taken down by the police, and 2 other people start attacking him. So there's 3 people attacking him, right? So he shoots one of them in the leg. And wow, crazy how this is happening. And the left is justifying this. This is just another part of the people awakening from what Trump derangement syndrome really does to people. I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to this travesty that has taken place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And this is where the missing for you attention, right? Thank you for your attention. So that's the missing R that went back to the operations are active, and the Q drop both from a timestamp perspective and the missing R. Pretty exciting. Here's another part. He says, a highly respected judge declined the block ICE operations in this very politically corrupt state of Minnesota. ICE will therefore be allowed to continue its highly successful operations of removing some of the most violent and vicious criminals anywhere in the world, many of them murderers, from the state. The great patriots of law enforcement will continue to make our country safe, record low crime numbers. All right, so that's Trump clearly addressing this whole thing. We're going to have to do the Insurrection Act if you guys are going to keep acting like this. All right, I'm not sure if Larry's having problems getting on. It looks like he's calling me right now, so I'm just going to play one other thing real quick here, guys, and what a sight it will be. Yes, when the Lord actually starts flowing through us. Yes, so I heard on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025, in my Rick's Alone Time with God blog. What a sight it will be is the title. And I said, Lord, how are you tonight? I am well, and I am seeing my children all around the world rise up and fight for what is right. My children can now see how the evil one is trying to destroy them. This will not happen as I am with you. My children, the battle is before us, and the battle is mine. But I want you involved. I want you to enjoy fighting with me. Do not get too emotional, but use your righteous anger to motivate you to join me in this battle. I want to use my people with different spiritual gifts in different geographical areas across the world to help me accomplish my will. And my will be done. We will be taking dominion over the earth away from the evil one for a time. So expect to take ground and win again and again. Take the authority I have given you and destroy the strongholds I tell you to destroy. Do not fear, do not be discouraged, but know that the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Draw close to me so I can yoke you and be your guide. I will give you specific instructions on what strongholds to take down and which ones to avoid. Remember, I expect my children to hear my voice, but this takes discipline. The enemy is losing control, and he has been exposed for how he is programming my children. So now is the time to recognize this deception and come to me to know how and where to fight. I can do much with submitted vessels. So become a submitted vessel for me, and you will see the downfall of your enemies across the earth. This is not about a regional battle. This is about seeing the destruction in a few years of what the enemy has built for centuries. I'm empowering my people to open their eyes and awaken to the evil of the enemy as perpetuated and the plans I have for you to be involved in setting yourself and those around you free. And free you will be. You, much of your family, and those who are watching you. Yes, if you are yoked by me and walking in your calling, you will be a mighty witness to others about my power and glory. So do not grow weary of doing good, for in due season you will reap if you do not give up. You will reap the abundant life of seeing others move into their calling and be set free. And indeed others will be set free as they come to me because of you. What a sight that will be. Discover more with Rick at morewithrick.com. That's morewithrick.com. I love that. What a sight it'll be when God's flowing through you, right? Through us. Exciting. Here's Trump. Larry's just getting ready, so he is in the room. So we'll go move over to him in just a bit. The EU makes more from fines on U.S. tech than tax from all of the public European techs. And so Trump is basically saying, hey, this is unfair. It's not going to continue, right? So as Donald Trump says, this is very unfair for our tech companies and for the United States of America. So he's going to war with the EU here for sure. He says, does anybody believe that Minneapolis, these are food stamp businesses? And he puts a couple of pictures here of basically these pictures that says food, food, food. It says it's open, but there's no food in there. Several places that are supposed to be these food stamp oriented places that are just fraudulent again. He says there's no food, there's no cleanliness, there's no service, there's no nothing except fraud. They get sent millions of dollars of taxpayer money and laugh at how stupid the Americans are, but not anymore. These people should be sent back to Somalia or any other country from where they came. California, Illinois, New York, and so many other places are equally as bad. It's all a giant Democrat scam with protection from the fake news media, but it will end as we make America great again. Here he says, this morning I have a very good call with the interim president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. This is interesting because Delcy and her brother, I think even Rodriguez, are basically the founders of the Smartmatic, and were at least oversaw that, all the election fraud to take over their own country and 72 other countries. But they got them under submission now. We are making tremendous progress, and as we help Venezuela stabilize and recover, many topics were discussed, including oil, minerals, trade, and of course, national security. This partnership between the United States of America and Venezuela will be a spectacular one for all. Venezuela will soon be great and prosperous again, perhaps more so than ever before. Pretty cool. All right, looks like Larry is ready, so we're going to move over to talk about the banking scam. So let's dig into a little bit about that. Larry, how are you doing today? Looks like we still have you muted on Zoom. We have you muted on Zoom. Can you hear? So I'm asking you to mute. There he goes.
So you just finished talking about scams, and now we're going to talk about another one. It's called the fractional reserve banking system.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And boy, is this one a big one. And as you dig into the details of it, it's a lot more than just them doing fractional lending. It's a real big scam. So let's dig into a little bit of that.
Okay, this is a pretty detailed presentation. Just so you know, we're going to have to go pretty fast through the slides. When I do this on my shows like this, I usually break it up into two parts. So let's dig in and we'll go as fast as we can. You just chime in anytime you want. So basically, you guys have probably noticed that little guy down in the picture down below, and he's saying it's my precious, what? It's his precious money. The minute you put your money in the bank, it's no longer yours. It belongs to the banker gangsters. And that's the absolute truth. Let's go to the next one. Rick, stop me anytime you want.
Okay.
So basically, understanding the debt slavery system. Here it is in one simple sentence. We, the people, owe the banking cartel interest on, you ready for it? On the first dollar ever created and every dollar ever created thereafter. So basically, it is a debt trap from the beginning to the end. Every dollar that is printed just raises the national debt until we get to where we are right now, where people don't know if they can pay their mortgages, if they can buy groceries, get their car repaired. And then here's what they've done in the past. This is different. They just collapse the system and start over and never make any effort to change anything and to fix anything. Well, with what Donald Trump is doing, he's trying to get a soft landing for America, not a total collapse, and then grow us back out of the debt and make America greater than it ever was. So let's go on down to the next slide if we can, and you chime in whenever you want. I'll try to go as fast as I can. Understanding the debt slavery system. The dollar is nothing but a computer entry. That's what I need you to understand. It's a treasury bond. It creates a treasury bond, which is a debt obligation, which is what? Illegal, because it taxes us on our labor, and our Constitution says you can't do that. So basically, the IRS is our enemy. And what's Trump been telling us lately? He's been telling us we're going to go from the Internal Revenue Service to the External Revenue Service. And what he's doing now is exactly what we did once before. Following the Civil War, we went completely bankrupt. And then we taxed England, and we made it so that, well, we basically levied tariffs on them. And what we did then is basically get control, and we developed the Industrial Revolution. We developed the assembly line, the automobile, everything else, and we shared the technology with the rest of the world. That's exactly what Trump is positioning us to do. Again, it's going to be a sharp, harsh collapse and then a very quick rebound to points above and beyond where we've been before. America was on the brink of collapse when Trump got back in, and now we're having a major resurgence. You got any comments before we go on, Rick?
Yeah, I'm good right now. Let's go. We're about ready to get some good stuff.
This is real quick. They intentionally create boom bust cycles, and it's real simple. It was Lindbergh who said this. He said the 1929 crash was the first collapse ever orchestrated as you would work a mathematical formula. And here's the formula. They increase the money supply, then they lower the interest rate. So there's lots of cheap money for you to get out there. Then they target you at an investment. And in 29, it was the stocks. And then they drive up the prices. The balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, what do? They trigger the collapse. They call in all the margin money all at one time, and they dry up all the credit. And then that basically collapsed the market. And what happens is it took 3 years for the stock market to go down by 90%. Then they come in and go on a buying frenzy, and they buy some of the best stocks in the world for pennies on the dollar. And they don't even have to own the companies. All they have to do is get enough ownership to control the board. That's it. And that's how the global fleet. So it was Lincoln who said, even before that, he saw it coming. He said, I fear for our great nation because I see the time that corporations are forming and the union of banks and corporations will control the country. And then what happened? Then they got the money. And what do they say? He who controls money controls everything. So they bought the politicians and all the spheres of influence. And we were absolutely slaves to the banking system. So that's the system they do. The system we're going into under Trump is going to be based on commodities, which is God's economic system, which have inherent value. So they basically run off of what? The law of supply and demand. They can't be manipulated artificially like this. And so we're moving into God's system based on gold and silver and all the commodities that God gave us. And let's go to this next one.
And so this is Larry, this is where I want to. I'll flip over to this view when I have a comment. Then this is important, guys. It's so vital to see that they purposely want to put America through the Great Depression. Okay, in 1913, they got control of the IRS and the Internal Revenue Service and the Fed. So the Fed gets installed, right? And then they're able to, again, it's called they take this. It's called quantitative loosening, and then they quantitative tighten. Right. And so they purposefully have the timing. Nobody else knows it. Right. And they get everybody used to, oh, my goodness, I'm making money on this stock. Look at this. And they get everybody used to having a lot of borrowing money to go open up new companies, and everything's going great. And then all of a sudden they tighten the money, raise the interest rates. People can't get money that they need to continue to fund their businesses, and people lose their businesses right and left. They lose all their stock market as it goes down 90%. They did the same thing to us in a lesser degree in 2008 and many times in between, and not just the United States. They've been doing this. I did it. One guy who left the cabal and was just so devastated when they did the quantitative tightening. Guy lost his business and that he had a relationship with, and ended up committing suicide because he lost everything, right? Lost his business, lost everything. This is the evilness that these guys are. They purposely buy up all our businesses, buy up everything. That's why BlackRock and Vanguard and everybody else, they own everything versus as we the people. So anyway, I just want to make sure that was really hammered home. It's sickening.
What I want to hammer home is that last sentence on this slide. I want you to understand why we live under literally a communist nation. So here it is. Basically what they did is they collapsed the system. They collapsed the republic. And here's what happened. This new form of government, so we went into full-blown bankruptcy is what that means. And it says this new form of government is known as a democracy. Remember, that's what they always call us. And democracies being an established socialist communist order. So for decades, they've called us a democracy. We never were founded as a democracy. We're a republic, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And our founding fathers said, the minute that you give money from the public treasury and entitlements to people, it's just a matter of time before the entire system collapses. So that's the slavery system that we've been under since 1933, and we've been in and out of it because we've had bankruptcies several times. Shall we go on, Rick?
Yeah.
All right, this one's quick. Here's what they do to us. You get a savings account. And what did Lincoln say? I think it was Lincoln. He said, penny saved is a penny. No, it's Franklin. Penny saved is a penny earned. Not in today's economy, not at all. Here's what happens. They calculate the interest rate that they're going to give you. You put your money in the bank and they calculate it so that always you lose money. The interest that you get is always less than the inflation rate. So when you get that money out, you left it in there for 10 years, you find out if you look at it based upon inflation, you've actually lost money by giving your money over to the bankers to be the guardians of that money for you. Let's go on down to the next slide, and we're going to find out how the bankers get rich using your money. So that, you know, that these interest rates change as time goes on, but let's say you had a savings account at 0.5%, 1%. Well, that's not what they're charging. They're using your money. And if it's a personal loan, they're charging 7 to 10%. If it's a credit card, they're charging 18 to 30%. And due to inflation, you lose money, as we determined in the last slide. And so basically, look at all the money they're making. And it gets even worse. This is just a simple view. We're going to look at it in a deeper level in a minute. But what happens is then they have the audacity to charge you for using the money. So they charge you maintenance fees, foreign transaction fees, activity fees, ATM fees, overdraft fees, and boy, that's a good one. So the example I picked here, because I've done this a number of times, you run over just by $10 and you get a $35 charge. That's a 350% interest rate, folks.
Right.
I mean, wow, that's incredulous. Let's go on down to the next one. I'm sorry I'm going so fast, but this is a really
We're getting 2 and 1. I love it.
So here we go. Basically, we're looking at the fractional. Now we're taking it to the fractional reserve system. And here's how this works. Let's say, for example, that you put $1,000 in a bank. Well, they have to keep 10% in reserves. So that means they can loan 900, but then they can loan 90% of that and 90% of the next amount until they've loaned all that money out. And remember now, they're making 7 to 10% on a personal loan. They're making 18 to 30% on a credit card. And it's not on that 1,000 that you put in, but it's on probably 10,000 by the time they get done loaning it out. So not only does the central bank print money out of thin air, but the bank takes the money you give them, and that creates printing of more money. And basically, they're just running on the razor's edge of financial collapse all the time. And so that's why we have these banking crises that we have. And then guess what they did in COVID? They said, oh, because we're in a crisis, you know what? We're going to waive that 10%. You don't have to have anything in reserve. And so that causes what? Bank runs. And folks, I hate to tell you, but with what's going on right now, we are going to see with this silver squeeze that's going on, we're going to see some very, very large banks that are going to go under. It's going to get very nasty. Rick, should we go on?
Yep.
All right, let's go to the next slide. And this one is near and dear to my heart. I was in real estate for 12 years, and I understand this completely. And I got hurt in the '08 financial collapse and lost my real estate company. So believe me, I know about this. When you make a loan, they front load. There's no reason they have to do this, but they front load all the interest. You don't pay half of the interest, half of the premium on your house until you reach the 36-year mark. So for the last 4 years, you pay off half of that note. I mean, that's unbelievable. And then here's what they're calculating. They know the statistics. The average American moves 7 times. Every time you move, they start the amortization table over, or if you refinance, they start it over. There's no reason in the world they should have to do that. You know why? Because in order to buy that new house has to be appraised. So it's now credit worthy. And you're the same person that was on that previous note, right? So you're credit worthy. You've got a 750 credit score. So there's no reason in the world they couldn't just take that and roll it from one house to the next house, and we wouldn't have to have this. So everything they do, so the solutions I'm going to be presenting over the next several months are going to look beyond this. We exist within a system where people who are our enemies basically pass the laws, and they are done in order to create a legal dictatorship. So I'm not going to say I'm willing to live under that legal dictatorship. I'm going to say I'm just going to ask what common sense says. Common sense says that is illegal, and we don't have to live under that system. So Amen. Should we go on, Rick, or you got a comment?
Yeah, go ahead. Amen.
All right, let's go on to the next one. The illusion of home ownership. So basically, it's a perpetual debt. You think you own a home? And guess what? That was one of the principal things that our founders came here for. They wanted to own a gun. They wanted to have individual voting rights. They wanted to have the ownership of a house because they couldn't have that under feudalism in Europe. And so they created a real estate system called aodial ownership. It was based on Spanish land grants. When you paid that property off, you owned it for perpetuity. Nobody could take it. Then they said, that's not working for us. We've got to have a new system. They called it fee simple. And all of a sudden, they had basically property taxes associated to your property. They drive you into one of those financial collapses that we saw in the earlier slide. You get behind a little bit on your mortgage, and the next thing you know, they take it. So here's how it works. It's unbelievable. It's just fraud of the highest magnitude. Let's just say you owe $10,000 on you're $10,000 behind on a $500,000 house. They take the house, they sell it for $400,000. The remaining $390,000. Do you think they just give you a check and say, Mr. Ballard, we've got our $10,000, here's your $390? No, they keep it. Now, I've not had to go through this myself, but I understand that if you're smart and you go to a lawyer, you can fight it and you can get that money back. But most people don't know any of what we're talking about here today. And so basically they're just abused and their money's taken and literally stolen from them. It should be a crime for the elite to take your equity. Yes, okay, they got the $10,000 you owe them, but it surely doesn't give them the right to take your equity.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next one. And here's where our poor kids are. How many of you ever gone to a restaurant and had some young kid come up who you thought was pretty sharp? I wonder what he's doing working in a restaurant, or she's working in a restaurant. The next thing you know, they got a college degree. So here's the scam. They give money to the schools. They basically sucker the people in with low interest rates, and then they go up. And then what happens? They give you an education that is intentionally designed to make sure that when you get out, you're not going to get gainful employment that's going to be in the field that you studied in. That's why you get all these kids working in restaurants. And basically, then they changed the rules and made it so even if you took bankruptcy, you can't get out of the student loan. Why do they want to do that? Because they don't want you to own anything. They want you to come into the economic system broke from the very beginning. Now, down below, here's something you need to know. When we had our nation first founded, we had a whole different system. There was a lot less people going to college, and that's the direction it's going now. We had apprenticeship programs, and here's what they have in Europe. You can get an apprenticeship program in Europe, and it could be something pretty sophisticated. You can be working in a factory that makes nanites, and those kind of jobs pay $100,000, folks. $100,000. Here's what happens. The union gets together, they chip in some money, the corporation chips in some money, the government chips in some money. While you're in the apprenticeship program, they pay you. Now, not what a journeyman makes, but they're paying you to go to school and get the certificate. When you get out, you have a certificate that's just like your diploma. You don't have to stay with that firm. You can go to any firm within an industry. And these kids are coming out not owing a single penny and making really, really good money. This is what we should be doing in America, folks, right here. This would break that slavery system. So I know people are going to disagree, but I'm for letting these kids out of this. It was nothing but a debt trap. So let's go on down to the next one if we can. Yeah. And whew, boy, are they unbelievable. Those of you who read the Bible know that the Bible says, usury is not a good thing. You shouldn't do that. Don't be a baller if you can keep from it. So here's what they do. They basically put you in a trap. You get 20 to 30% revolving credit card. And what that means is that you're not paying a straight 10% or 20% or 30%. It's revolving, it's compounding interest. So here's what happens. You get into it, you're under usury law. There were 6 states that didn't have usury laws. So they incorporated in those 6 states, and all of a sudden we went from interest rates that were 7 to 10% to interest rates that were 20 to 30%. So they had us. We have to go back and say, you know what? We set this country up to not be able to have usury, and also we should be able to pay simple interest, not compound interest. So basically it's another debt trap that they put us in that just leaves us in perpetual debt. And if you can't pay that card off at the end of the month and say you get in a situation where you can only pay the minimum, almost all of that money that it accrues. And basically you can go for 20 years on a $10,000 debt and never get out of debt. And here's the trap. Let's go to the next slide. They are pariah. So they have their perfect customer. It's not the guy with the 700 credit score, the 800 credit score. It's the student who's struggling. It's the poor. It's the elderly. It's the single mothers. Why? Because they know that they're going to have crises and then they're going to drive up their credit cards and they're not going to be able to get out, and they will be in economic slavery for the majority of their life. That is slavery without chains, folks. That is the banking system that we suffer under. And I've got good news for you. Guess what? With events that happened that Trump has orchestrated since he's come back in, this system is going to collapse. Just like he said, we're going to go out from under the Internal Revenue Service to the External Revenue Service, the 25 to 35% you pay in taxes to their IRS that go for nothing except to monarchies in Europe are going to go away, and you're going to have a whole lot more money in your pocket.
Or
we're going to get out of this.
Goes to the Somalis.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah,
Right.
And to legal immigrants of all forms. Here, come into the next. Here's a credit card.
Hey, Larry.
Okay,
Hey, Larry.
go stay at the 5-star hotel while the guy who served you in Vietnam is sleeping in the streets. I mean, it's incredulous.
Yeah, exactly.
So now,
Larry,
the rich get rich and the poor get poor. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no question. I wanted to ask you your opinion on Trump's tweet or truth that he sent out last week that basically said on January 20th, you need to, for 1 year, you can only charge 10%. Obviously, he hasn't done an executive order. There's no law about that. What's your guess, or how do you think that's going to play out?
Well, I don't know how it's going to play out, but I can see exactly what he's doing. It was in the last slide. Mm-hmm. He's going back to the system that we had. We had a government that was a republic, for the people, by the people, and it provided us safeguards. So he's taking this right back to where we were before they incorporated. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think that the banking system is going to fall. I think that Trump is going to get control over a lot of things. And I think here's what's happening. Venezuela is the key to all of everything falling down. And when we find out absolutely that the election was stolen, and multiple elections were stolen, from the research that I've done, it goes all the way back to McKinley. And when that happens, here's what happened. Let's take an example. You got Bush, he's in office, and we have 9/11, and he passed the Patriot Act, and the Congress both sides got together and passed it. On 3:45 in the morning, he pulled that version of the Patriot Act, and he put one on the table that was modeled after the Enabling Act during Adolf Hitler's time in office. And basically it made surveillance, and what did it do? It created a legal dictatorship. So what we're going to do, to answer your question, is we're going to go in and we're going to get our freedom back, and we're going to say, you know what? There have been 7,000 plus pages of laws that have been passed by people who were on the take from the global financial elite, by politicians who were corrupt. And I believe we're eventually going to just get rid of all of them. And instead of having 1,000-page bills, every bill will be able to be written on a napkin. So basically you can say, here we go, just with the example you give. We will no longer charge more than 10%. That's it. That's all you can charge. And you will no longer be able to have your house taken away from you because you have to pay property tax, and et cetera, et cetera. See how simple it is? It's common sense, it's honest, it's fair, and it's what's coming.
Yeah, and what's interesting about it is that, the credit card companies are pushing back and saying, hey, we're not going to be able to give as many people credit cards, right? And we're going to have lower credit amount you can borrow, and other restrictions will come. And I go, well, that's good. I'm saying, so people will use less credit card debt. That's the point, right? So the 20% extra they're charging you and using to basically allow people to default and not ever get that back, or negotiating reductions of costs. But to the average person who has to pay it, right? Those people will benefit, right? So anyway, it's just interesting back and forth.
Let's look at what Trump is orchestrating here.
Right.
So we get out from under the Federal Reserve, right? So we don't have to pay federal income tax. So we got 25-35% more in our pocket. We get out from property tax. We go to to relatively clean, cheap energy. And that means that every product you'll buy the rest of your life is probably 40 or 50% cheaper than it is now, because energy is the principal cost of everything. So all of a sudden, the people have plenty of money in their pockets, and it's not a problem. And guess what else? With the system that Trump is taking us into, based on blockchain, based on crypto, guess what? We're going to be able to say to nations all over the world, all the poorest nations, go to South America, go to Africa, go to India, go to China. You don't need a bank. You can be banked yourself under the system that we're setting up. So guess what? We're going to have a lot less need for credit card companies, and we'll be able to snuff our nose at them and say, too bad.
Yeah, it'd be easier to borrow from other friends and family, because we have that, and you don't have this middleman of the bank for everything. It's going to be beautiful. Different, but the biggest problem is the debt slavery and the mom and dad having to work just to make the mortgage, right? That is going to be the biggest breakthrough in all this gold back, where you don't have the inflation. Exciting times coming.
I'm a lot older than you, so you probably don't remember this. But when I was young, growing up, there was a Catholic family next to us, and they had 6 kids, one job. The guy had a blue collar job. He didn't make a whole lot of money, but they had 2 cars. And all their kids were always in good clothes. Basically, what we're going back to, where we're not going to need the credit cards, is back to an economic system where one person can work and support a family and have money and save money and be in a situation where they don't have to have credit card debt. That's what's coming.
Yeah.
We're not only not going to have to have credit card debt, but when you do have to use a credit card, it's going to cost you a heck of a lot less. So let's go on down. And the old saying, the rich get rich and the poor get poorer. The people in the bottom of the floor get treated the absolutely worst. So if you're really in debt, you can go get a payday loan and pay even more interest. And if you're here and you've got relatives in another country and you need to send them money and you've got to transfer money internationally, I mean, if it's only a couple $100, the fee is huge.
Right.
But now when we get under the system that's run with the rails of XRP, it might cost you a whole penny to send that money to your relative in another country.
Right.
See the system? It's changing. It's going to be fair and equitable, and we are going to have money in our pockets. Let's go on down. And this summarizes basically what they're doing to us. The bankers target those that are least able to pay, the low-income people, the senior citizens, the single moms, the students. They put them in perpetual debt where they get stuck in a credit card bill. They can't pay it off, and they pay the minimums, and a debt that could be paid by the person who had money, paid off in 6 months, may take them 10 years.
Right.
It is nothing but slavery. Let's go on down to the next one. And here we go. The credit card trap. So good old Chase, and guess what's happening with them? They're coming out now, and the retailers are coming at them. Did you know that? What the retailers are saying is, oh, you give all these special credit cards where you can get automobile, you can get airfare points, and you can get points off if you buy cars, buy gas, and so on and so forth. They said, we're paying for that. So now the credit card companies have sued, and basically, if you did business with Chase, they have 4 or 5 levels of cards. You had to accept them all. And now the credit card, now they're saying, no, we won this case. And now the retailers are saying, we're not accepting that card or that card or that card or that card. So even they're coming at them. So anyway, let's go on and see what this looks like. This is an example that I pulled up about how we get stressed and how the rich keep getting richer. So this is a real world example. Back some years ago when we were in the COVID era, Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sure you all will know who he is. He bought a house, multiple millions of dollars, and he got a 1% mortgage when the average person was getting 4%.
Yeah.
And what did that do for him? It allowed him to take those millions and invest them in high yield investments, right? Now, for the average American whose money he's using to buy that house, they're having to borrow money to buy necessities, to pay for gas, to get a car repaired. And so we just go in that perpetual cycle of going deeper and deeper and deeper into debt while we give our money to Mark Zuckerberg, and he can invest and make millions and millions and millions. The system is absolutely at every juncture unfair, and it's controlled by the global financial elite to enslave us. And we're going to break from it. The people have had enough. All right, let's go on down. Hold on, I've got a problem with my computer. Okay. All right, so now the public labors under oppressive taxes. So here's what you do. So you get a tax bill and you have to pay your income tax, and maybe you have to pay it quarterly or whatever. But no. The rich corporations and the rich people, they don't have to labor under that. They can go offshore and they can take that money. They take, on average, it looks like about $10 trillion goes offshore, and that's about 10% of the GDP. And once they get it offshore, they don't have to pay any taxes. So what's my napkin solution for that? It's real simple, Rick. It's down at the bottom. You send that money out. As it leaves the country, it's taxed. Then you go put it wherever you want to put it. But we get our money. They have to pay taxes just like we have to pay taxes. We need to make the system fair and equitable, and it's really simple to do. So let's go on down, go to the next one. And how the elite legally avoid paying taxes. There it is. Basically, they have shell accounts. That means they're just fake accounts in countries, and they get 0% tax rates, and that applies to the ultra rich individuals. And so they have all the avenues in the world. They have tax consultants, and all the loopholes are put in the system to benefit them, and they're put in the system to tax us. Let's go on down to the next slide. And this one I'm going to read. This one is very, very important. Money buys election. And it enslaves us by controlling all the spheres of influence, because what that buys is the politicians who pass the corrupt laws that enslave us.
Yeah.
The fiat money system must be allowed to collapse. That's what Donald Trump is saying. We're going from the internal revenue service to the external revenue service. And when it collapses, it has to be replaced by God's commodity-based economic system, which is what? Based on gold and silver. And what have the prophets been saying? The system is going to fall, right? I believe it started collapsing on Christmas with the silver shorts. And what caused it? A simple stone. And what was that simple stone? Silver. And what is silver? It's a precious metal. And and what does the Bible say? All the gold and all the silver are God's, all the cattle on 1,000 hills are God's. So we're going to God's economic system, and we're going to a simple, honest, fair tax system. So let's go on down to the next one.
Amen.
And this, I don't think most people know, but basically these three men were the culprits that caused us to have the 2008 housing collapse. It started with Obama when he wasn't even in politics yet. He got out of Harvard, and the first thing he did is he went to work for a community organizing group, and he sued Citibank and on something called redlining, which is saying that they were discriminating against people of color. That's basically what it says. All right. So anyway, what happened is he won. It was all supposed to happen. And basically what happened is all of a sudden you could buy a house for the first time in the world with no money down and no income verification, and with an interest rate of 1% to 2%. But there's a catch. If I buy a house and I put 20% down, I get a fixed rate mortgage, 15 years, 30 years, whatever, at a fixed rate. But when you go put nothing down and have no income verification, you get an ARM. And about 3 years out, that ARM triggers and the rate goes up, and it goes up markedly. So they knew that they were going to sucker in millions of people that had no right to buy a house because they couldn't afford it. Then they were going to raise the interest rates, and people were going to lose their houses by the thousands and then by the millions. And then they basically took the zero interest predatory loans and combined them with the conventional loans to create collateralized debt obligations and sold them around the world. And then all the rating companies gave them AAA ratings. And so we literally almost took down the entire global financial system. Thank you, Mr. Obama. And then we come along with Clinton. And what did he do? We had economic stability to a large degree because we had something called the Glass-Steagall Act, which didn't allow you to take regular banks, investment banks, insurance companies, and merge them because you'd have banks that were too big to fail. He gets rid of it, and within a month, JP Morgan files the largest bank merger in the history of the United States. And then we go to George Bush. And George Bush was, of course, the one who was in the presidency when we had 9/11. And all of a sudden, here's what's happening. The predatory lending is looking like we know where it's going. The governor of Georgia was was in the banking field before he became governor. He passed an anti-predatory lending piece of legislation to save the people of Georgia from the bankruptcies. And Bush put an airplane full of lawyers on, sent it to Georgia, got it repealed, and then went further and said, no state in the republic has the right to pass anti-predatory lending laws, and basically the whole system folded. And then the governor of New York came back and made some nasty things to say about him. He says, when this dust settles, this will fall on you. You caused this. It could have been prevented. So there's your culprits. And we always have bought and paid for politicians that are controlling all the systems that enslave us. Let's go on down. And we passed the Dodd-Frank bill, but that's what you need to know, folks, is it's all a roulette game. So basically the bankers, since your money is their money once you put it in, and since they're now too big to fail, they can afford to gamble with your money. So basically they make all kinds of high risk investments, and if they fail, they know they're going to get bailed out. So you're going to be the one holding the bank every time it comes back on the American people, and we lose assets, we lose our homes, we lose our houses, and basically we're in debt. The system has to be changed. And let's go on down, and we're kept in financial slavery, just absolute slavery. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm going to ask the people out there to think about this. When you were in high school, when you were in college, do you remember the personal finance course that you took?
Nope.
Did you get a good grade on it? Well, if you answered yes, I got news for you. No, you didn't take one. They didn't offer them because we have a 3-tier bank education system. If you're one of the elites, you go to an Ivy League school and you're taught how to be an entrepreneur. You're taught how to manage money. You're taught how to do all the things to be what? Trained to go into government to basically become the ruling class. If you're the middle class, you're put in that system where basically we're the labor force. And if you're at the lower class, you exist to be kept in poverty, be kept dumbed down so that we can have constant angst between all of the races and all the groups in the world. You see how the system works? They basically are relentless. Let's go on to the next slide, and we're going to see that this coming collapse is going to be different than any we've ever had. Always before, the collapse was from one of these three things. It was the stock market. That was 08. That was on 29. It was the real estate market. That was 08. It can be the bond market. This time, because the entire world is in absolute debt. The debt to GDP ratios in nations all over the world are out of control. And so it's going to be an everything collapse. Everything is going to collapse, and that's exactly what we want, because we need to bring the system down completely, take the money away from the global financial elite, and start over and have a fair and equitable system based on God's economy. Rick, comments before we go on?
I'm good right now. I'm excited.
All right, this next one's important. It's simple, but it's important. If you know the tenets of communism, that word in that first column is right from that. It's progressive tax. So what do? They put us under the federal income tax. And by the way, none of that money goes for a school or a road or a bridge or anything. It goes to the city of London and to the Vatican and to the aristocracies in Europe. But you know what? As the debt keeps growing and growing and growing, that federal income tax isn't enough to pay the national debt. So they have to layer on more taxes. That's called progressive taxes. And then when they've got all the taxes they can think of, then they say, well, we still can't pay the debt. So now what we're going to do is raise the taxes. And that's where we go. But now when we go over into a commodity-backed system, God's system, guess what happens? Everything goes down. We get debt forgiveness. We get a system that's fair and equitable, and we get out of debt. And basically, we're out from under the federal income tax. We're out from under all those superfluous taxes, and we're functioning on exactly what we were set up in the first place, which is a simple sales tax. And they're estimating it's going to be 14%. Well, right now, I'm under personal property tax. I'm under federal income tax. I live in a community that's a tourist community, so we have fairly high sales tax, 10%. So I'd be in a situation where I'd pay 4% more sales tax, but I wouldn't pay personal property tax, and I wouldn't pay income tax and a whole myriad of other taxes. So I might walk away having 50% more in my paycheck than I have now if I'm the average American. Do you see the system? Do you see what they've done to us? Do you see what we can get? Let's go on down to the next one. We're almost done. And boy, they're not going to like me for this one. I'm going to read it from top to bottom. This is what we have to do. We have to forget the laws. We have to understand they're all corrupt. We have to understand all the agencies that control us. So we have to basically get out from under the current banking system. That's the Federal Reserve. And basically we have to, the international corporations, including Wall Street, we have to get on a completely new system with Wall Street, get out from under the shorts and all the manipulation and all the hedge funds. And there's a simple way we can do that. And we have to get rid of the politicians, the judges, and all three branches of the government and get fair, honest elections. This is where it's all falling apart when we find out that we haven't got the people that we thought we put in office are nothing but crooks and criminals. We have to get out from under the 8 spheres of influence, which means we have to get control of the money and not them. And then, oh, this is a good one. All 3-letter agencies. And how do we get them? How do we get the CIA and the FBI? And they were corrupt because we went into World War II and we needed a spy agency. And oh, the Council on Foreign Relations just happened to have one. And they embedded that in the government. And then it came the FBI and the CIA and morphed into all the other security agencies. So I'm going to read this. The Council on Foreign Relations is the American branch of a society which originated where? In England, our mortal enemy, and believes national borders should be obliterated. That's why we have open borders and millions and millions and millions of immigrants coming in here, is to collapse this and a one rule established. And look at the quote down there. It's from Dr. Carol Quigley, who just happened to be a CFR member and had to be the mentor of one President Clinton, and he happened to write a book called Tragedy and Hope. So there we go, folks. I mean, groomed, financed, and just pass it on down. So the whole deep state has to collapse. Just like the Bible said, you have to dig it out at the root. We have to have a complete financial collapse, take the money away from the global financial league, and instill God's kingdom based on the commodities that he always intended. So we've made it through. There's my current book, and you guys have heard me talk about it forever. So let's go on down and have an announcement to make. My second book is ready to come out. Tentatively, what we're going to do is we're going to put it on pre-sale on I think on Valentine's Day. I just think that'd be kind of nice. And then on the 4th of March, it will go on full sale. And it's called, just how timely could it be? Restoring the Republic. Liberty Crusade, Restoring the Republic. Now, Rick, I don't know if we have any more time. Did you want to talk about any of the late breaking things that have been happening in the last week or two in the economy?
Yeah, we got a few more minutes. I did want to make sure though that people know that we take a full hour, sometime a little more than an hour, where Larry and I can discuss each of these topics in more detail in an exclusive that only can be found on faithandfreedom.tv. So make sure if you want the exclusive, plus we have a lot of 107's latest videos there. So that's our reason to go to faithandfreedom.tv, which is a web app. It's beautiful, but you can also put it on your Roku device, your Fire TV, your Apple TV, Android TV, any of your TV platforms, as well as your mobile apps. With those exclusives where Larry and I dig into and talk to about quite a few things. But any major thing that you wanted to kind of quickly go over?
None of these are cast in concrete, but they're all probables, okay? So here's why I look at it. We're in a war. It may not be called World War III, a kinetic war, but it's in a war. And I want to just give you a little idea of what it is. So we're fighting a war with assets. So basically, we're putting a squeeze on China and Russia with what? Oil. That was a large part of what Venezuela was about, where we were basically blockading all that oil that was going out. And then in terms of Russia, Trump's trying to get Russia to what? To negotiate a peace agreement. And Russia has made a very serious mistake. When you look at the fall of dynasties, the Dutch back in the 15th century, the Spanish, they all had their governments around one commodity, and that's what the Russians have. And so now basically they've been sanctioned, and their oil is fairly expensive to get out of the ground because it's all the way out in Siberia, 3,000 miles away from Moscow. Mm-hmm. So, and then now they've been bombing their oil refineries, right? So what did Trump do to try to bring them to the table? He went and made a deal with Europe and says, don't buy Russian oil anymore, and they agreed. Went to India, said, don't buy Russian oil anymore, and they agreed. So basically, that's putting the hard squeeze on Russia, trying to get what? To get it. Trump says we have to have peace around the world. We have to have all nations that have sovereign governments, sovereign currencies. And so that's the squeeze. And then there's something happening in Venezuela that I don't think most people realize. Trump, I think, may have, for the short term, overpromised on the Venezuelan oil. He said, we're gonna run the government, and they're gonna send all the oil to us, and we're gonna have lots and lots and lots of oil. Well, the reality of it is, there was a meeting this week, and I think he'll get there, but it's not going to be anytime soon, because he brought all the oil executives in and said, whoa, you want how much? 100 billion, 180 billion? And they said, what? Unanimously, Venezuela is not investable. Why? Because basically they went in there, they developed those oil fields, and then they were taken to Chavez, and they said, we have court orders that say they owe us 12 billion. Trump, when you get that negotiated, and you get us 12 billion, you get the economy under control, you get everything, then we'll come in. So basically, we're going to get some oil out of Venezuela, but not as much as we thought. What?
They just can't have the cartel in charge. They're worried that in 2028, Trump will leave, and then the cartel will get back in power. So the oil companies need some assurance that the cartel's not running the hen house down there. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And what's happening, if this is part of the Monroe Doctrine, and I mean, look at what's going on. So basically, we're also squeezing Mexico, and we're basically going to go after the cartels in Mexico. Well, Mexico is kind of fighting back. They've got a lot of oil, and it happens to be heavy oil, which is the very kind of oil our refineries use. So I don't know what's going to happen, but they're pushing back against us. What do you know? And then we got Greenland, and we're saying Trump is now getting aggressive and saying, we're going to take Greenland. Either we're going to buy it or we're going to take it. He's offering $270 billion. But he's a pretty good card player. So you know what he just did? He put 120 special forces in airplanes. We've got an air base up there, and he flew them up to Greenland and dropped them off. And so now we have military on the ground, and they only have 34,000 people in all of Greenland. And so he's got Europe and NATO in absolute, just who knows, but they're really, really nervous. So I'm telling you, the world is going crazy. And then, of course, I didn't see this coming, Rick. Maybe you did, but basically Iran is fallen. But I didn't realize it was going to have this impact. Apparently, it's triggered something to do with the pension funds, and now the pension funds are saying, well, with all these activities, there's likely to be a crisis, a shortage of oil, and so basically all the pension funds are having to bring more gold and silver, more precious metals into the funds. That causes more of a squeeze on the silver, more to bring the system down. So that's an outcome that I wasn't expecting. I don't honestly say at this point I really, really understand that, but I think it's got a very significant consequence. And then China is in absolute trouble. So if we look at it, when we've had these kinds of collapses in the past, there was always two great nations. One falls, the other steps in and takes it over. But here, Russia's falling, China's falling, Iran fell, the United States is in trouble, and Southern Hemisphere is in trouble. There's nobody. So the entire system is going to fall. The kingdoms of man, this is out of your Bible, have to fall. That's communism and that's capitalism. Communism because it's tyrannical, capitalism because it's absolutely, utterly wasteful, and we're going to have to go to what? God's kingdom. And what's it going to do? We're going to, the reason the global elite, this is the end game, this is where we'll finish, want to kill us, is because they consider we're using too many of their natural resources, what they consider to be their natural resources. But if we go to God's economic system, here's what we do. We stop making products that are designed to have planned obsolescence, and we make products that will last a lifetime. And all of a sudden, we're using a fraction of the resources that we had. And oh, by the way, there's another point I want to bring out. We're looking at a situation where the silver crisis is going to get so bad, by 2030, we might have a 60% shortage of silver to basically run our factories. Well, you know what? Listen to this. You want to put a squeeze on China? China is the number one manufacturer for 5G. They're the number one manufacturer for solar panels. They're the number one manufacturer for EVs and for batteries. All of that is the Green Deal. And as we go into this, Trump is now declaring the what's it called? Oh, come on, Larry. It's the National Production Act. And it looks like what he's going to do is basically confiscate silver and say to the industries of the world, you can have this much silver. If you have any more than that, you have to give it to the government because we have to maintain our military readiness. So guess what that's going to do? We're going to finally go right smack dab into the heart of confronting the green lie. And we're going to say, who's wasting more of our silver than anything? It's those four industries. And who controls them? China. Look at what Trump has set up here, folks. So what I want to close with, we're going to have a collapse. Don't you dare blame Donald Trump. This was orchestrated by all of the presidents who preceded him for the last 50 years, for the last 73 years. And he is not starting wars. He's ending wars. He's not causing financial collapse. He's creating a new system that's going to give us freedom. So back to you, Rick.
And I think it's important to understand that there's a great plan of the elites trying to get us to the great reset. That is the evil one where we own nothing, and Trump's doing just the opposite, where this new plan is going to be a we the people oriented financial system. It's quite exciting.
Maybe I got one more comment based on what you said. Here's what I want people to recognize. The system that we're going under is God's system. Here's the system. This is to all the nations out there and all the leaders of all the world. If you start to side with China because you don't like what America's doing, here's what you get. If you look at the Bible, it talks about a time when there'll be a system that says, that's the beast system that says you can't buy or sell. Guess what, folks? It exists in China right now today. They have 5G everywhere. You can't go anywhere without facial recognition. They have control of the internet. You can't go on the internet unless the bots are following you every place you go. They have a social credit score that's different than our social credit score. Here, your credit score goes down because you made late payments. Over there, your credit score goes down because you did something the CCP didn't like. And when that happens, they zing your credit score. And here's what happens. Anybody who associates with you, their credit score goes down. Any employer who hires you, their credit score goes down. Any landlord who rents to you, their credit score goes down. So effectively, they have implemented the B system where you can't have a friend, you can't have a job, you can't have a house, where you can't buy and you can't sell. And that is because here's what they did. They at one time were mining the Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is what? Decentralized. They got out of it, and Trump took it and said, we're going to be the crypto capital of the world, because they wanted a decentralized system so they could have central bank digital programmable currency that could target the whole nation and say, if you don't spend the money that you made last month within so many days, it goes away. It's just a credit. And so they could say, Rick, I didn't like what you said, and so your credit score has dropped dramatically, and guess what? You're unemployed. I mean, that it's a punitive system that can keep you in total, absolute slavery.
Yeah,
that's what you get.
They want
if you side with the CCP.
Yeah, they wanted a centralized system. We're going to decentralized system. Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Larry. I just wanted to just do a quick prayer for you, if you don't mind, just anything specific come to mind.
No, I'm just, like always, I'm struggling with my health a little bit. I'm not a spring chicken. So any help I can get in that regard would be appreciated.
Okay, awesome. And I'm just going to say, Lord, thank you so much for Larry and everything he's doing. We just pray for blessings on this book, blessings on his life, especially his health right now, Lord. They've purposely, the medical cartel has made us sick, right? There's so much in our water and our air and our food and our toilet paper, everything that they can do to make us sick. They know that by the mighty name of Jesus, and we say yes to a great health. So just touch Larry with the Jehovah Rapha touch. Allow him to be, his voice to be amplified like never before, Lord. Thank you for that. We submit Faith and Freedom TV to you. We submit these books to you. Use them in a mighty way for your kingdom. We say these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you so much, Larry, and we look so forward to next week. Again, this will be only on Faith and Freedom TV, but we'll be digging into some more detail on all this and his solutions in more detail. We're looking so forward to that. That'll be going up pretty much every Friday. So make sure you've got your downloaded app at faithandfreedom.tv. All right. God bless you, Larry. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. All right, guys. I just wanted to...
Bye, Gus.
Yeah. I wanted to just go to one, just to emphasize one other thing, guys, is that the sponsor of the show was the Healing of Biblical Oil. It's kind of cool. It's awesome to have the frankincense and myrrh. It's very unique to have that in an anointing oil. So again, go to blessed2teach.com/oil, blessed2teach.com, blessed with the number 2, teach.com/oil, and you can get this anointing oil that's also healing oil. And it's got all kinds of different brands that you can look at. I think you'll really enjoy that. But we're looking so forward to going now to praise and prayer. And again, this is on the Word and Worship channel or the Growing with Faith channel on Rumble. You can also join us backstage here on Blessed to Teach. Remember, just go to Blessed to Teach. You can sign up for the show notes there, get every link, and get that I've shown that we went through earlier on the news, as well as get a summary of the show, including what Larry discussed here each and every day after the morning after. So that is that show notes are there. That's also where you can do donations for the ministry and get involved in a variety of ways, as well as get to all our different activities that we have going on. With that, I'm going to set up a raid to switch you guys over to the live channel we're going to be going into to worship the Lord with praise and prayer. We do that every Monday and Thursday, and then we have a Bible study. Blessed to Teach. Just go to Backstage on the Blessed to Teach tab. That's where I was trying to go. So you can actually participate in the Bible study and the Zooms. God bless you guys. With that, we'll see you at the other channel here in just a second. Bye-bye.
Elitist media deceives, but Faith and Freedom TV amplifies truth. Our world-leading platform delivers news, teachings, worship, movies, and music rooted in biblical values and constitutional patriotism, inspiring faith and liberty. We inspire, equip, and amplify Christian patriots to share powerful stories of faith, family, and freedom. With live events, thousands of on-demand videos, and access on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, Android, and iOS, we're transforming culture globally for God and country. New content is coming to ignite faith. Join our mission to counter deception. Visit faithandfreedom.tv and download the Faith and Freedom TV app today.